For those of us who've joined us in Napa before, you know the B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum is special. It's a special location, a special venue, and best of all, special people. We pride ourselves on curating an A-list of attendees, the best and brightest leaders of our $500 billion plus business to small business marketplace. And every day we are adding speakers, workshops, and special events to this intimate forum, all of it highlighting the shared challenges and opportunities in a setting that drives casual and candid exchange. Join us at the 2022 B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum, May 11th and 12th in Napa, California. Tickets are on sale now at b2smbi.com/leadersforum22. Hey, good day, everybody. Dave Walker here, and this is the kickoff session for our Forward 22 event, and I think it's a great one with a great panel. You know, for the last 2 years, I certainly know that most of my time is occupied in talking about the challenges that are around us, behind us, ahead of us in this business to small business market space. And I thought it very important, and if not a little bit of a tonic, for all of us to talk opportunities for a change. Because there are so many opportunities that are out there, I believe, in this business to small business space. Not the least of which is we were just talking about, Kate just told us that she saw some recent research that it's now 6.5 million new small businesses that have joined the marketplace, which is really kind of astounding. And speaking of Kate, I want to start to introduce my panel. First and foremost, Kate Winkler, CEO of Rubyl. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much, Dave, for, again, hosting not only this wonderful group, but for everything that you do for small businesses. And more importantly, I love this concept of opportunity because we have spent 2 years talking about all of the problems. So it's nice to focus on sharing those lessons learned on how we actually kind of push forward together. For those who don't know Rubyl, we are a live reception and virtual chat services business. We service about 14,000 small business customers. And while we are headquartered out of Portland, Oregon, we still have over 700 people working from home.
Awesome. And I know that in the past couple of years, you've done a great job of kind of revealing to the world exactly how you were responding to the many challenges that faced your business. Another person who's spoken in the past at our virtual events over the last 2 years and has been a friend of the Institute for, gosh, a long time now, almost since the beginning. And that's Sean Cohen, who's the COO of AWeber. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to a great discussion today. And I agree with Kate. The challenges that have been surrounding us for the last couple of years, it's so exciting to talk about opportunities. So for those who don't know, I am with AWeber. AWeber is an email marketing platform helping over 450,000 creators and small businesses and newsletter publishers create more meaningful relationships with their communities. So again, I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to the chat.
Terrific. And last but not least, again, someone who's spoken to us before, but represents just such an interesting business and a business concept. And that's Dan Visnick from HoneyBook. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be back speaking with you. And yeah, like everyone else here, really excited to talk about what the future holds and the opportunities, because I see definitely a lot of it. And thanks for your advocacy as well during the challenging times. That's been really important. For those who don't know me, I'm Dan Visnick, CMO of HoneyBook. HoneyBook is the leading platform for independent businesses to manage their client flow and cash flow. And by bringing together tools like lead gen, payments, contracts, client communication, we help businesses get organized so that they can provide a streamlined and excellent client experience to their customers. And our mission is to help those businesses spend more time, doing what they love and less time on kind of the tedious back office work that's sometimes entailed in doing a business.
Which is why I think you guys should win the award for best brand name in the B2SMB space. HoneyBook is just such a memorable name and such a great description of what you guys do. Well, again, welcome you guys, and let's kind of like go back around the horn here and kick it off by just answering the question: I think you've already indicated it in your enthusiasm to talk about opportunities, but are you bullish about the opportunities that really exist in this business to small business market space over the course of the next year, couple of years? Are you bullish as we come out of this pandemic period? Kate, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. And then is one of the kind of key data points, Dave, that you've already mentioned. We've already seen in the last year 6.5 million new small businesses. And probably a more fascinating piece of data is that 50% of them are fully remote, meaning they don't have infrastructure, they don't have big capital expenses, they don't have major outlays to get their businesses started. And we're now also, because of the pandemic, in a community really where our financial support system is now paying attention to small businesses. So even access to the funds to start a small business, and then layer on that the technology that is available from anything from business startups to all of your marketing platforms to all of your technology, IT services, infrastructure. The technology to get a business up and running is so easily accessible that the barriers to entry for small businesses are being reduced to a point where it's making that next adventure or that I want to try this out on my own less risky for individuals to think about, I want to try and be a small business owner. And so I think personally, one of the dynamics that we're seeing is because of some of the things that we're seeing now, 10 million people having said, I quit, people are looking for purpose and passion, and they are looking to spend their time doing the things that they love. And with that barrier drop now, I think that's the primary driver of this new cycle of new businesses that we're seeing every single day.
That's a great answer. Sean, from your perspective, what are you seeing, or how bullish are you?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Kate just said there from the new and emerging businesses for sure. But I think, another way to look at it as well is that existing businesses, over the last 2 years have spent a tremendous amount of time sort of becoming lean and mean, right? Cutting the crud from, their infrastructure, services that weren't providing the value that they once thought. And they're coming out of this pandemic in a way that's, really doubling down on the tools and services that are pushing them forward. So if you're poised to help small businesses grow and you're providing a tremendous amount of value, today is the day to be completely bullish on this market. And that's one of the things that gets me really excited. You have all these really passionate people both coming into the market, but also being reinvigorated in their businesses. So yeah, bullish for sure.
And Dan, how about you?
Well, these guys stole some of my talk track, but I so agree with what they're saying. I'd say we saw before the pandemic 2 macro trends that were happening. One is the rise of independent businesses, and 2 is digitization. And what we saw through the pandemic was an acceleration of both of those trends, and we're really bullish that those are not going to let up. One, on the independent business side, as Kate mentioned, was happening before, but the pandemic really made people step back and look like, what do I want for my future? The relationship between people and work has fundamentally changed, and they're asking a lot of deeper questions and saying, I don't want to work 9 to 5, or I don't want someone that's controlling me. They're looking for freedom, control, and independence. And that's something that they can find by starting their own business. And those barriers are lower, so they can jump in and do that. At the same time, this trend of digitization during the pandemic, it was happening before, but during the pandemic, it necessitated this move. If you didn't digitize, you had a much harder time and you may have lost your business. And what people found is that was better customer experience. And so that's not going away. And these businesses that adopted it are going to continue investing that to make it better, both on the new business front. A lot of these people are savvier and they're going to adopt these things immediately, but those existing businesses, as Sean mentioned, had to adopt this, and that's going to continue going. The other thing underlying this that gives me confidence longer term, this is a generational change. It's not just, hey, all these businesses were here. Gen Z is coming up behind this. And if you look at any of the data, I mean, these people were creating their own businesses in high school. The preponderance and the desire for them to have this freedom and control and that passion and purpose is leading them to index much higher on creating their own businesses. And so that's a trend that's going to carry both of these trends forward for many years, not just the next 1 or 2 years.
That's really well put. I think that it's a huge wave that's coming from this next generation of entrepreneurs. I'll let you kick off this next question, Dan, because you had so much thunder stolen from you in the first round. The question is basically, give me 3 categories of small business or specific small business segments, maybe profiled a different way, that you're really bullish on, that you're the most bullish on for the next few years.
Yeah. So one broader category I'd say are these independent businesses. If you're looking at the broader kind of small business landscape, they're a segment within that. And I think for the reasons that we all just talked about, over the next coming years, their spending is going to be increasing. Now, when you look at that on a per business basis, they're not going to be spending as much as 50-person SMBs or even 100-person SMB. But as a category, because of that underlying growth that we talked about, they're going to represent a large share of increased spending. When we do look at a vertical level from our business, what we see is things like web designers, marketing consultants, business consultants, coaches, virtual assistants are some of the categories within that subcategory that are growing really quickly and also tend to make more revenue and are spending more on the types of digital services. And that makes a lot of sense because a lot of them are around servicing the growth of these new businesses and that digitization trend.
Terrific. Kate, how about you? What categories do you give me 2 or 3 categories that you're particularly bullish on?
Interestingly enough, all of mine are going to be in vertical segments that have high labor elements to them, specifically meaning, when you think of small businesses like IT services, marketing services, even home services, roofers and plumbers, these are folks where their business model is dependent on their time. And so as you actually think about how they're really embracing technology, embracing outsourcing, embracing independent consultants, they're actually getting scale by allowing them to focus. And so we're seeing some super interesting trends, even if you think about IT services, because of the complexity of how we're working now, the security issues with managing remote work are huge, or marketing services, just supporting all of these new business startups and trying to now compete for a lot of eyeballs. And then, you can't just grow a business on SEM alone anymore. And so how do you really embrace things like social media? And really, for that older generation of small businesses, a lot of this is really, really new. And again, funny enough, home services, everyone's working out of their houses and stuff is breaking a lot. The growth I know that Ruby has seen in the home services segment, just because there is so much demand for the home now being the workplace, that's been a fascinating trend to watch.
Terrific. Sean, how about you?
I guess I'll just round it out here. I mean, I certainly agree with, what the 2 others are saying for sure. I just had a conversation with my accountant the other day who was sort of in, professional services, firmly classified as a small business owner. Pre-pandemic, he would see 99% of his clients in person. Where we are today, 1% or less. Huge spend in infrastructure to make sure that he could do everything possible online, from communication, from document storage, document transfer, and he's spending money, and he was starting that, obviously pre-pandemic, but starting to double down on it. So that professional services group, is key for sure. We're seeing tons of growth there and tons of spend. We're seeing a lot of people who have these established businesses for a long time, sort of did it the same way for a long time, and they want to see their businesses continue to thrive, and they need to modernize. So we're seeing a lot of spend coming from that category.
So it's a great tee up and segue into the next question, which I'll start with you, Sean. It is the demands that small business now have, many of which were kind of forged in the last 2 years of the challenges they were facing, how do they what opportunities do you believe, Sean, those demands translate into for you specifically at AWeber, and then really more broadly for your peers out here in the business to small business market space?
Yeah, I mean, although we don't hear this specifically as a thing, but what we're hearing, what we're seeing, and what the motions are is time. Everyone wants time. They want time back. They want time to spend with their families. They want time to go travel and do all these things that they see possible. So they're looking for services and service providers that can give them time. We're seeing more demands on automation. We're seeing more demands on do it for me type of models, or make it super simple so I can do it myself and your tool just gets out of the way. So I think that has always been an underbelly of any service provider, but today, more so than any other time that I can recall, they want to use the time and they want to be able to go do those things. So our customers are looking for efficiency. They're looking for automation. They're looking for tools that help them get more time in their day and back in their life.
And just a follow-on question, is that, are they willing to pay more for it? And is that a relatively easy sell?
I'd say yes, they're willing to pay more for it. So certainly a premium, but it's an expectation at this point. Mm-hmm. And if you're not providing that, it doesn't matter what you're charging, they're going to look elsewhere.
Dan, as far as the HoneyBook offering and the app itself, are there opportunities, because you guys have been so iterative in the product that you've it's not static by any means, but the one that's in the market right now, what are the demands that have been placed on your product and your service offering that really you are all realizing, wow, thanks for telling us, because this is a big opportunity for us?
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit on what Sean said around time. And sometimes people don't explicitly say that. They'll say something like, I need to get more organized, or I need to, figure out how to do this. But what it is really saving time. And for us, because we service these independent service providers, it's interesting because they're selling themselves. So they are the product. And so time is inventory basically for them, right? And so if you can free up, time that they're doing, spending on something else, then they have more inventory that they can sell basically. And so that's really critical. And so one of the things we see a lot of demand for is like, how can I get more organized? How can I be more efficient? And that plays well into our core product. The other thing though that we've seen is, I think Kate mentioned this too, people starting to focus, financial products and servicing small businesses, at the beginning of the pandemic and what happened with PPP and everything like that, not a great, example of how to service small businesses with finances, but there are a lot of startups and people starting to pay attention to that now. And it's a class that historically it's been hard to get access to capital. And so I think that's another big opportunity. We recently launched a capital product ourselves, and we're blown away with the demand. We thought it was going to be quite modest, and the kind of demand for that and the take rate from people has really surprised people. So I think that's a big area. The other thing too, I'd say is education and consulting, again, because there's so many of these new businesses getting in there. And again, from the independent perspective, at another company, you have people specialized in doing your books or doing this or doing the marketing. This person or these one or two people have to do everything. And so we've seen there's a big demand in people who provide those services to educate or do consulting and really teach these people and give them more expertise. And so we think that's going to continue as well.
And again, another great segue. Thank you, guys. You guys are making my job really easy. Kate, to you, I know minority-owned businesses, I know women-owned businesses, I know underserved communities are near and dear to your heart. And they have clearly, over the last 2 years, finally been given voice of the needs that they have and the demands that they have. how are you guys looking at the opportunities that those demands represent, and how are you responding?
It's actually such a wonderful question, Dave, because the needs of minority businesses are different. And we have a tendency as small business service providers and product providers to assume that they are the same. And so we have actually taken a pretty significant amount of time to sit down and actually do market research and studies with different segments of, particularly right now, we're focused on our BIPOC community and understanding what are their needs, because there have been constraints that have been financial. There are constraints that are labor market driven. There are geographic constraints that are very unique to how they operate. And so if we take a kind of peanut butter spread approach to marketing to every segment of our community as though they're the same, we will never properly service that market. And so we've actually been looking at in creating business requirements for what are the specific needs of our minority run and minority owned businesses. How do our services overlay to those? How do we actually change our services and make them more accessible? And that's just the service offering. And then you have to say, okay, well, now how do I market to this group of minority run and owned businesses, because they don't consume content in the same places that we typically run our businesses. And so there is a completely different go-to-market strategy as we actually think about how to actually meet these businesses where they are in the communities that they support. And it's a very different level of engagement as well. So we've had to actually look at not only go all the way back to what are the business requirements to really meet the needs of this community, how do we actually build and design services around their unique needs? And then how do we actually build the proper go-to-market model? It is almost a business model within a business model, but this community deserves it. And quite honestly, as service providers, I think we do owe a very specific lens on better servicing our minority communities.
And Accenture just in the many 12 different research surveys that they've done over the course of just the last 6 months into the small business community, one of them very specifically asked the question is, does the greater degree of attention given you as a minority owned business or a women owned business, whatever, does it change your attitude towards the products, the brands, the people who are helping you? And it was an emphatic yes. In other words, it's good for business. It's not just the right thing to do. It's good for business, and it represents probably a bigger opportunity than any of us could really even see. I've also heard, by the way, that also is in this research that word of mouth was significantly greater activator in these communities than it was in virtually any other small business segment, and that if you were, whether it was geographical or whether it was segment or whatever the affiliation, that making a positive impact with one multiplied very, very quickly.
There's a different level of trust in a minority community that word of mouth has an amplifier to it that is excruciatingly important.
So let's loop back and talk a little bit about this wave of new businesses that are coming online and coming into our ecosystem. Do you think that they have a different set of expectations, or maybe a more evolved sense of expectations that represent actual opportunities for us in the B2SMB space, not necessarily through the lens of demands, because certainly they're going to have demands on all of us, but what kind of opportunities do you think they represent? So Sean, I'll start with you.
Well, it's such a loaded question for sure. I think ultimately we're seeing this huge surge of people who are taking their passions and somewhat hobbies and turning them into businesses. Something that's maybe been lying at the surface for a long time, and they're finally trying to monetize it. They're like you said at the very beginning, they may still be working, their typical job, and they're starting to build out this business. They're starting to look at tools to help them grow. I think initially what they look for is every free service that they can find in order to kind of help launch whatever it is that they're doing, and then they start to see some success and they start to look at tools. So I think the spend from that emerging group is probably small on a per business level, but there's so much scale there. And I think that's where, AWeber has always really embraced that solo entrepreneur type category, the one who takes their side hustle and turns it into something that, ultimately can be a dream. I think Web3 is also creating, a whole new batch of creators coming online, and actually, NFTs and things like that. We're seeing a lot of those types of creators start to think about spending money on their business and being able to promote so that they can then start to grow. They use tools like Discord and things like that, which are really noisy environments. And we're seeing a lot of those really trying to build deeper relationships with their audience, really communicate with them. And an email obviously plays into that really nicely. But I think it's opening up a whole new segment of the business or business opportunities for us to think about, how do we serve them better? How do we build and provide tools? Even though it's emerging and there's little spend on a per basis, but at scale, millions and millions of creators are coming online every single day, and they're realizing quickly that there's a market for what it is that they build, they sell, and there's a lot of passion that comes through there, and that's a really exciting slice.
A great answer. And over to you, Dan. And I if you could focus just a little bit in your answer, please be as expansive as you want, but a little bit on the education required of these new entrepreneurs, many of whom are coming in, as someone said the other day, they're coming in pretty cocky. They're coming in from years of being in a corporate setting where, they had legions of people reporting to them and lots of resources, and they're going to hit the wall pretty quickly of, resource scarce, time starved, the challenges that every small businesses face. What are you seeing in the form of onboarding these new entrepreneurs, particularly in a platform like yours?
Yeah. I might take a little contrarian view there, in the sense that I think some of this new wave is savvier in the sense, so they know from the start that they need to embrace these digital tools. And so in the past, there's a lot of small businesses where they had a process that was notepads and maybe an Excel sheet or something like that, and that was their process. They wouldn't even call it their process, though. It's just like, how do you do business? But when they'd come to a platform like ours, they say, like, what's your process? I don't have one. Well, yeah, you do. It's just inefficient and whatever. And so I think actually these new businesses, I think already have the understanding that these digital tools can help them. And so they're potentially more likely to embrace that quickly. And so I think that brings up one opportunity for everyone, is that, in the past, it'd be sometimes these more mature businesses that might be more willing to they're established and now they're looking to scale. But I think there's an opportunity to capture some of these people earlier, and they're going to be more willing to adopt and more willing to spend. So kind of earlier in that business life cycle, actually, because of one, they're more savvy, having come maybe from these corporate jobs where they're using that. But again, two, that generational piece where you have people who have grown up using these tools natively. Now, to your point about education, yeah, they need to learn. And again, we've seen that as something that's growing on our platform, coaching, consulting, etc. And we see a lot around finance. That's something people find kind of scary, and when they have to do it themselves and they don't have that accountant. But we've seen a willingness for people to embrace that, and I think also just in different expertise. If they were a marketer in their corporate job, they don't need to learn how to market, but they do need to learn the accounting, or they do need to learn maybe a sales cycle or something like that. So it depends on their expertise, but we've seen a willingness for these people to embrace that.
A great answer. Kate, I'm going to switch it a little bit and coming to you. And I want you to talk about not the new businesses necessarily, but the businesses that have been. I think Dan brought up earlier, you know, the businesses that really have been there and survived this pandemic, and they've been there for quite some time. I presumptuously believe that all small businesses want to grow. And I have, over the last couple of years, been slapped roundly about the face and ears that, wait a minute, not all small businesses want to, quote, grow. In fact, many of them really want simple sustainability, healthy sustainability. Talk a little bit about the opportunities that exist with those businesses primarily interested in sustaining and being, and a healthy sustain, of course, but what do those opportunities look like?
It's so interesting, Dave, that you brought that up, because we just spent 6 months redoing our vision and mission, and in our first round was, we want to help our customers grow. And I stopped and asked everyone, are we sure they actually want to? We're presuming they want to grow. And we really did. We took a cycle and really engaged with our customers and said, how many of you want to grow? We asked our customer advisory board. We created a survey for our customers. 50% of them didn't want to grow. They were looking for balance. And unfortunately, what happens, 85% of them are working nights and weekends right now. So they don't have enough time in their day. It's back to this problem of time. And 35% of them weren't actually even paying themselves a consistent wage. So their models were broken. And so now the interesting thing that we're seeing is small businesses, their problems have changed. And so there is a need as service providers and product providers to the small business community to almost engage with them to help them understand their business problem. Because we have small businesses, whether they're brand new all the way to 10-year established, I've been doing this, our third generation business, that come in and said, I heard Ruby can help me, get more business. And I said, okay, but what is your problem? And we go through an extensive fit assessment with our customers. And a lot of times we have to say, Ruby can't solve your problem. You have a funnel problem. I can catch 100% of your leads, but if your leads are 4, you've got a different problem. So let's talk about and analyze your problem. Now let me put you in touch with Dan and Sean, and part of our community, our support network. Solve that problem first, and then you're Ruby ready. And then we got you. We'll establish brand, we'll create value. But as business providers, if we can't help our customers understand their business problem and how we deliver value to solve that business problem, that shift and really it's a fundamental, almost maturity shift in businesses, then you won't actually build a business strategy that allows you to access the entire market. So even for Ruby, we've had to analyze our entire life cycle to say, how do we create onboarding opportunities for all of the different problems that are out there, because it's not one problem. So if I'm a new business, I can't afford a receptionist. I just need shared labor. But if I'm a 25-person, very established 40-year-old attorney group, it's about brand for me. I could hire a receptionist all day long. I just want something that's quality and brand and consistency. The problems are different and they change over time. And so for that more established group, number one, we spend a lot of time helping them get balance and identifying their problem, but creating different ways to get more time back in their day. And so we might suggest to them, you instead of just using us for rollover calls, you should use us full time so we can give you that time back right away. And let us tell you how we're going to measure value and show you how you're getting value back so that you know that there's an ROI. So it's a very, very different conversation, because you're almost becoming a business coach to those more established businesses and educating them about, you can't possibly do everything. Or your spouse business partner, who usually is the one that runs the front office and the back office, they're not scalable either in a digital world that really requires expertise in marketing, in IT services, in all of these different things.
And it's clear that the coaching leads to genuine business opportunities for you, right? I mean, it's not an upsell as much as it is an opportunity sell to what they need. Sean, we've had this conversation before, and it really is the feedback loop that you get from customers where they are actually telling you what your opportunities are with them. How do you guys do it, first of all? And how well do small business in general really convey the opportunities that they see with their vendor partners? How well do they do in translating that so it really turns into something you can take action on?
Great question. And obviously one of AWeber's core values is listen to what others say about us and invite feedback. So this is sort of really near and dear to our hearts. We listen everywhere. If there's a platform, we are trying to be there to communicate with our customers. One of the things that we did during the pandemic is create a 24/7 support operation so that we could always be there for customers, because we found that a lot of people aren't just working 9 to 5, they're working in the middle of the night. They get done one job and then they start another. So we're trying to create those, those places for them to talk. We have communities on Facebook, where we have people come in and talk about problems and help them solve problems. We created office hours where we would do live webinars once or twice a week throughout the pandemic, and we've continued them where people can come on and just talk about issues that they're having and help them solve those challenges. I think ultimately, in the vast majority of cases, somebody doesn't necessarily come out and say outright what their problem is. They kind of unleash, and then from there you kind of have to decipher, decode, and this is very germane to what Kate was saying before. You have to really get to the root of the issues. But I'd say first and foremost, it's being available. I see too many businesses sort of pulling themselves away from their customer. They're not, they're pulling away support or outsourcing it, but not in a meaningful way. They're doing it in a way that just sort of removes themselves from having to talk with customers. And I think that's a death sentence, in my opinion, for any business. So we've tried to create as many of those opportunities. I still to this day talk to probably 20 to 30 customers every single week. And I know our CEO, Tom, he does the same thing. We're available. If somebody's having an issue on, Twitter, and again, this doesn't scale, but, I'm in there asking, how can I help you solve that problem? Everyone on my leadership team does the same thing. Every 100 employees at AWeber does the same thing, because that's the culture that we built to do that. So, once you've established that loop with your customers and you've established that trust and relationship with them, then it's just about listening. You listen to the issues, and then you try to figure out how to solve their problems, whether that's solving them through advice or through tools or, through partnerships, right? We have very often, we'll send our customers like, you need to start here, build this first, go here. And it's creating all those loops with people.
Sean, I know you do this, but I'm going to ask the question of Dan. Dan, you've got a pretty robust user community that you've created kind of a platform for them to talk to each other. And as we all know, small businesses like nothing more than talking to other small businesses. It's the group they seem to trust the most. How do you provide that platform and extract from it the opportunities really that you can pursue in the best interest of that community and their dialogue? When does it and do you ever run the risk of being invasive and kind of eavesdropping, or how do you do it basically? How do you listen well to your community for opportunities?
Yeah, so we've had a pretty robust community that you don't have to be a member of Honeybook to join. We call it the Rising Tide Society, and it's a group of entrepreneurs that, what we found is, look, this can be a lonely business and people need that connection, but also some of the education and resources that we were talking about. And so I think part of the brilliance of that from the start was it wasn't trying to sell something. It was born from trying to create real value for this group of independent businesses. And when you start from that and you're providing the value that they need, like how can these people come together? We have local chapters where people pre-pandemic came together in person, 400 different places across the US, we saw there was a real desire for that. And so we have a community team that's very adept at listening. We have volunteer community managers for each of the locales where we have a presence. And so part of it is that it's built itself and is organic, and it's not a top-down kind of here's what you need to do type of thing. There have been a couple times where we've tried some things that were a little too tops down, and you hear about it quickly, and that's not what they need, that's not what they like, right? But this organic part of it, I mean, it's always served us and provided a lot of valuable feedback. But man, during the pandemic, I mean, like right when we were at kind of ground zero of that happening, the community provided us so much insight on what people needed and what they were looking for, and the real problems that they were facing on the ground, that enabled us as a company to pivot extremely quickly and start delivering what it was exactly that people needed. And so if you can organically enable that to flourish, it does provide a ton of value. And then people who are coming in to buy our product see this and they're like, wow, that's an amazing value add. Like, I'm going to go check that out. And they can get, a lot of added value that, our core product itself from a technology perspective, doesn't offer.
So last round of questions, I'm going to start with you, Kate. You know what a huge fan I am of Ruby, because you guys are absolutely remarkable in how you run an extremely high touch service profitably, very profitably, and I think it's worthy of a Harvard Business School case study. But start this line of questions around how you guys have been talking very eloquently about a lot of the opportunities that you see ahead of you. The single biggest challenge with that opportunities is how do you organizationally align your teams, your capabilities, your processes so that you can pursue those opportunities. So I guess my question to you is, looking at all the opportunities that we've talked about, how are you and your team thinking about, here's how we organize, here's how we train, here's the new technology that we need, processes, all those things?
That is such another wonderful question. And quite honestly, we're 2 years into a complete overhaul on process, trying to address exactly that. And what I mean is, we didn't even have a same data dictionary for how we even talk about the business. And I've been at Ruby now for just about 2.5 years. And when I got there, the business was very siloed. No one talked to each other across departments. And so when you realize the complexity of the business that we have, if you don't have everyone interacting seamlessly across every department, because there's no project that doesn't touch every single department. So the first thing that we did is we started to align everybody on just KPIs about the business. What are the core KPIs in every single department? And we educated everyone and reported out and looked at trends and set operating meetings and talked about why these metrics matter. And more importantly, which of them are forward-looking indicators versus, what are the things that we should be paying attention to overall health and well-being? And there's a very significant portion of those KPIs that are customer-facing. Which of these customer-facing KPIs tell us whether or not we're managing and maintaining the quality of service that we've committed to our customers? And so is it our NPS and our CSAT and some of those things? And is it just basic operating metrics that our speed to answer is staying at 6 seconds? So we have crazy high standards of 1 ring cycle is how fast we answer our calls, because guess what happens by the time you get to 2? Your abandonment rate doubles, and that's critical to a small business. So we talk about why every single one of those metrics matter. So we've now trained the organization to really understand that it's not about trying to overoperate with data. It's really understanding the impact, going, oh, I'm up to 8 seconds. That's not good. I better not get to 12 seconds because that's lost opportunity for a business. So now we talk the same language about what are the KPIs that drive our business and really signify quality to our customers to maintain service levels. And Ruby is known as being the highest quality provider. So we can't afford to lose that. So those metrics really matter. The second thing that we really did is rolled out a project management office. And so as you get bigger, that cross-team collaboration becomes really important. And the fundamentals of you need to start every project with business requirements. We have a tendency to just say, I'm just going to start doing and it will be fine. And then you never check back in and saying, wait, who am I doing this for? What am I building it for? So we've had history where we just build products going, customers are going to love this. It's going to be great. Did anyone actually ask a customer? And did we do the research? Did we engage? Did we prototype? Did they test? Did they? And so that maturity in that process of really bringing the customer all the way to the beginning of that process. And we actually have uniquely two customers. We have our external customers of our products, which are all of our small businesses, and we have internal. So we have 450 receptionists that use our products every day that only they use. And so what are the different goals of those customers? How do we think about their requirements? When we build a project, how do we measure success? So we've been putting a lot more structure around processes, even now related to that same kind of KPI data dictionary. And then we talk over and over and over and over again about our purpose. That purpose overlay is the most important thing at Ruby, to say we all have to realize that everything that we do, is it helping me achieve our vision and our mission? If it's not, we should pause and really talk about, is that a priority? Because we are here to really help support the small business community. And so everything that we should prioritize our work and our resources on has to support that vision and mission.
So Kate basically just dropped the mic on you, Dan and Sean. I don't envy you having to follow that. But I think I'll give you a little of assist, Sean. You've added actually a lot of new products and capabilities on the Aweber platform. We are a user, we've seen them, we've applied them, we've used them. How have you adjusted the organization, not adjusted, but how have you managed the organization through that process of onboarding all these new capabilities?
Well, like most companies, we've made some major shifts as well. We were a 100-person organization with 100% of our team located in Chalfont, Pennsylvania, in one building, under one roof. So, a lot of the processes existed around everyone being together. Over 2 years, we've unraveled all that, and now we're a completely remote company with team members all around the country, all different time zones. So for us, we've really doubled down on documentation, communication that's asynchronous, because there's no more hallway talk, right? Like Kate said, we need to be very purposeful about everything we're doing. So if we're going to roll out a new product, somebody needs to be able to go into our repository and read why we're doing it, what's the impact to the customer, what ultimately is the value that we're looking to provide the customer. And I need to be able to read that when I wake up in Utah or when I wake up in Pennsylvania, and I need to be able to then communicate with the teams that are working on it. Most of that communication needs to be documented so that people coming into the project later can follow along with it. We talk a lot about, we do this thing at Aweber in our Slack channel that we do doc props. So if somebody links to good documentation in a stream of a conversation, we have a little emoji for doc prop. Like you did awesome. You gave us documentation. And we've gotten so, it's become so ingrained in us because we're not all together all the time anymore. And it's great. It gives us lots of flexibility. The team members, have basically moved to places where they've dreamt of living for their entire lives. They've been able to do that and stay at Aweber, but it creates all these challenges that we've had to figure out because our consistency level, our level of, ultimately trying to create a remarkable experience for our team and our customers is unwavering. So we needed to figure out how to do all of that, but still create that remarkable experience at every turn, because that is an expectation that we will never give up. So documentation, processes, all written down clearly and updated, iterated all the time. So those are things that we look for so that you can get the doc props, at the end of the day, and maybe that'll funnel up to our awesome award winner.
That's terrific. And I know that's something that Ruby does all the time, is those internal awards are key. Dan, I want to give you free reign to answer the question as expansively as Kate and Sean has, but if you could include in your answer, you guys recently, were well deservedly given a huge tranche of funding to grow your business because you've been growing so fantastically over the course of the last couple of years that you've been around. What kind of pressures or challenges are created by having now investors who have very high expectations? And I think your partners here on the panel would agree. They tend to, tap you on the shoulder pretty frequently and say, where's my money? How has that impacted the processes and the systems and the pursuit of opportunities that you guys really are going after?
Yeah. I'd paint it in a positive light. And I think that we, one, it's a validation that the market that we're going after is very meaningful. And there's other external parties willing to invest a lot of money because they see a big opportunity there. And it's not just us, other people in this space that are serving this growing independent business sphere have been getting a fair amount of funding too. So I think it's more a recognition, the stakes are raised, but our mission and what we've been working on for a few years is real. And we now have an ability to make an even bigger impact. And at the end of the day, we want to help small businesses be successful. And, when you have a couple $1 million, you can be so successful doing that. And, when you've raised around 500 million, you have the potential to be more impactful in doing that. And so we see it as, a validation and a great opportunity and a way for us to actually deliver on our mission. I think, when you look at pre-pandemic and post and how the org has changed, we were actually fairly well suited to go through this for two reasons. One, that focus on the mission, people were really aligned with that. And two, our culture that already existed. So there's a lot of great things about our culture, but part of it is we were already kind of working remotely. We have our product and development team in Israel, and we're also a very transparent company. And so we already had things in place, like we have a weekly meeting, a weekly all hands with everyone. We have a daily meeting with everyone that's a little shorter where individuals can talk about different topics. We have lots of Slack channels where we're integrating customer feedback that's exposed to everyone. And so, moving remote, we like each other a lot. And so not seeing each other, that was difficult on a personal level. But operationally is pretty good. I think the one thing the pandemic brought to us, though, was focus. And, in crisis mode, when the world was kind of falling around everyone, it really helped us narrow our focus on what is making an impact. And I think that's something that we've carried through as a company, and other people saw that and was reflected in the funding that you mentioned. But that's something that we're taking away from that. And so, mission, culture, and focus is something that's going to make us really successful.
Oh, guys, I gotta tell you, this is the best panel we've done in a while. I mean, this has been fantastic. And I think that the richness of you guys' answers has just been absolutely so helpful. And I believe will be so helpful to your peer set. They're all thinking of precisely the same opportunities that you are, but to see the playbook kind of opened up full and transparently, to see what you guys are doing, I think, and all different, but all the same in some regards. So thank you so much for doing this. It's greatly appreciated. I hope to see all of you in Napa for the Leaders Forum, and we'll do something like this in Napa as well, where we really do, it's going to be a very workshop oriented, very kind of group conversation oriented conference, not one where we do a lot of talking heads and keynotes and big slideware, but where we really just genuinely talk to each other, because God, it's been a long time since we've been able to sit side by side and knee to knee and talk about this incredibly wonderful business that we're in and serving small business. So Dan Visnick, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dave. Looking forward to it.
And Sean Cohen, as always, a delight. And thank you for being so articulate on what you guys do.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And Kate Winkler, thank you for lighting up this group. Just That was a drop the mic. Absolutely. That last answer was absolutely fabulous. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much, Dave, and look forward to see you in Napa.
All righty. Take care, everybody.